Witness to a new era in the field of medical education. The Islam, a non-profit trust committed to the upliftment of minorities, was established by the entrepreneur Mr. Yenepoya Abdullah Kunhi. Perceiving the potential of Mangalore suburbs to be a prospective educational hub, he began the establishment of colleges with the principle of excellence in professional education, which flourished into a full-fledged university, providing training in medicine and all its parallel fields. Currently, Yenepoya is a dynasty of educational institutes like Yenepoya Dental College, Medical College, Nursing College, Physiotherapy College, Yenepoya Pharmacy College and Research Center, and Yenepoya Institute of Arts, Science, Commerce and Management were further established to offer education and research in the areas of pharmacy, management and general education. Yenepoya offers a plethora of courses with 89 ongoing and 20 approved and proposed programs. The PhD program has been introduced in 39 departments and research center as per the UGC regulations. The medical college also offers undergraduate courses in technical programs like medical lab technology, medical imaging technology, perfusion, renal dialysis, anesthesia and OT, cardiovascular technology, respiratory care, optometry, as well as hospital administration and others, to name a few. Students are presented with ample opportunities to find their niche. Spread over a sprawling 36.76-acre campus at Teralakatte, Mangaluru, all the constituent colleges are provided with excellent infrastructure to impart knowledge. Spacious examination halls and 19 lecture halls have the electronic support system to engage students eloquently. Practical training is complemented with well-equipped laboratories. The anatomy dissection hall introduces students to the intricacies of the human body before undertaking clinical examinations and procedures. Well-equipped pathology and biochemistry lab foster the importance of diagnostic procedures to implement treatment. The central laboratory is a key unit, conducts number of diagnostic and confirmatory tests. Many significant in vivo researches are conducted at the Animal House of Pharmacology lab. At the Nursing Nutrition lab, aspiring students learn to put together a nutritious meal for the benefit of their wards. Pre-clinical exercise at the Physiotherapy lab enhances clinical understanding. Dental simulators prepare students to handle clinical scenarios. The Simulation Center at Yenepoya is the largest in India and trains students in a virtual environment to mitigate errors and maintain safety. This includes a number of unique state-of-the-art facilities like Anatomage table simulating the human body, a number of high-fidelity simulators like infant, adolescent, adult, and maternal fetal simulators are housed here. Students seeking to further their knowledge can do so with CPR mannequins, endoscopy, laparoscopy trainers, cath lab and ultrasound trainers. The Simulation Center is a milestone aimed at perfecting the skills of trainees and delivering excellent treatment. Comprising of well-stocked central library, housing thousands of books, journals and publications, regularly updated via digital media, with 7 museums documenting various areas of health sciences. The Dental Museum being the most advanced, affirms Yenepoya is not just a university for the students, but a knowledge center. Students at Yenepoya acquire valuable experience during hands-on training at the medical college and hospital, with above 2,000 outpatients per day at OPD. A fully functional ICU, general wards, blood bank, digital MRD, CSSD, oncology center and kidney transplant unit. Cath labs and OT have been established. The operation theatre is equipped with 14 state-of-the-art modular OTs with stainless steel makeup and HEPA filters and antibacterial and antifungal walls. The operating rooms have state-of-the-art equipment, adequately staffed with experienced professionals. They're customized for smooth delivering of operating procedures, for super specialty and other routine emergency surgical services. The theatres meet quality standards envisaged under NABH norms. The state-of-the-art robotic surgery unit at Da Vinci Surgical Systems is a first in coastal Karnataka. Patients from all strata of society are benefiting from this advanced minimally invasive surgical system at a highly subsidized cost. Considering the demand for surgeons skilled in robotic-assisted surgeries, the university, in collaboration with Intuitive Surgical USA Inc., a global technology leader in minimally invasive robotic-assisted surgeries, has established an advanced surgical skills and robotic surgery training center, which is a second of its kind in the country. The Dental CAD Center is one of a kind in the city. The Radiology Department is one of our primary diagnostic centers equipped with ultra-modern units for diagnosis. The facilities are echocardiography, X-ray, CT scan, ultrasound and digital radiography. The 3 Tesla MRI has been installed for making use of highly advanced and reliable imaging technology for early diagnosis and treatment. There are only a handful of teaching hospitals in the country with this facility. The Yenepoya Research Center is a unique venture equipped with state-of-the-art mass spectrometric instruments and dedicated team aimed at groundbreaking research in newer fields of study, including biostatistics and information, molecular biology, toxicology, cell culture, stem cells and regenerative medicine, nanosciences and nanomedicine, microbiology and mycology, infectious disease and bioanalytics, also patenting the findings. The YU IOB Center for Systematic Biology and Molecular Medicine promotes further research in the branch of molecular biology. Center for Biomaterials and Medical Devices focuses on developing medical devices, biomaterials and non-invasive methods for diagnosis and treatment of diseases. The Center for Health Professional Education conducts regular feedback sessions and training workshops to all faculty. The Center for Substance Abuse and Prevention is an active entity that performs extensive research and counseling on tobacco, alcohol and drug cessation. Center for Ethics is proactive in imparting bioethics and medical ethics to the professionals and students in all. The Yenepoya Center for Craniofacial Anomalies is an initiative backed by a team of doctors dedicated to the study of cleft and craniofacial anomalies. At Yenepoya, social responsibilities are taken seriously. Many community outreach programs and healthcare delivery programs have been chartered for this purpose. The university has a dedicated rural healthcare and development center which caters to 27 sub-centers. The Dental College has 9 peripheral sub-centers in rural and outreach areas, and Physiotherapy College has 1 peripheral sub-center. With 8 hostels for both men and women, the campus is well equipped to provide students with a memorable experience. Students focus on overall development with the use of sporting facilities around the campus, which includes well-maintained sports ground, indoor stadium and multi-gym, helping students to maintain their physical well-being. The university boasts of an active NSS unit with over 500 volunteers. Renaissance, the students' annual cultural extravaganza, is a platform for showcasing their talents in curricular and extracurricular activities. Along with being an educational center, Yenepoya is nature-friendly green campus. The Center for Environmental Sciences is dedicated to the sustainable development of the university campus. 1/3 of the campus is glowing with green. The primary attraction being Medicinal Garden, the campus boasts of initiatives like rainwater harvesting, solar panels, drinking water and sewage water treatment plants. A central kitchen supplies sumptuous, hygienic food catering to all necessities. Yenepoya campus houses a prayer hall, cafeteria, mini theatre, laundry and daycare facility. Education is the food for the mind, body and soul. At Yenepoya, we deliver the best of everything to help our young minds enlighten themselves, making a difference to the world as we know it today. Discover your world at Yenepoya.
Very good afternoon to all the participants of this virtual webinar. Um, it is indeed a pleasure to organize sensitization programs on women's safety by the Internal Complaints Committee of Yenepoya University. All the members of the committee have been very supportive in organizing this program, so that all our employees and the students will be benefited from this session. We have Madam Asha, who has more than willingly accepted our invitation. On earlier occasions also, Madam Asha had been very supportive in talking to our employees and the students. We hope to have a very fruitful learning session. Many more participants, I hope, will join and benefit from this session. Thank you.
With us, we have resource person, Senior Advocate Mangaluru, Ms. Asha Nayak. A wholehearted welcome to you, ma'am, and awaiting for your session. Over to you, ma'am.
Today we will be, good afternoon everybody. Today we'll be dealing with sexual harassment at workplace. Most of the time we may or we may not have had this experience, and now we have an enactment or a law which is favorable to women who are victims of this harassment. Hence, the sexual harassment for women at workplace preventive and prohibition and redressal was passed in the year 2013, December 9. Now, before we go into the act, we would be doing injustice to the two ladies who were very instrumental in bringing this enactment into force. Why we need to know the historical background, or we should remember and thank these two ladies, because one was a very illiterate lady who was instrumental in this, and you must appreciate the behavior with which she took this to the logical end. And another was the judge, who was instrumental in facilitating this particular lady in her endeavor. So, if I have to give you a small time history about this act and how it came into being, it will also be a beacon of light for us, or it will also derive some strength into us. We call ourselves educated, but most of the times what happens is when crises like this come in, we are very, very weak or feeble in our outlook, or in our reactions, or in seeking remedies or legal remedies, like to put it that way. So you can take this lady as an icon, so that you will also, in the case of a crisis, maybe not you, your sisters at workplace or whatever it is, or friends or relatives, you can use this so that it will be an eye opener for all. And one of the aims of this act is to see that it is propagated. Most of the times we have very beautiful enactments, but we are unaware of it. But the law says, ignorantia juris non executa, means the ignorance of law is not an excuse. So you need to know the law of the land, and that is why these enactments are passed. And then we cannot cry hopes and say, oh, we didn't know this, there was an act like this existing. So therefore, it is better to know a little bit of the historical background to this act. Now, in the year 1992, there was a lady by name Babri Devi. She was a Satin, something akin to the Anganwadi workers in Karnataka. That was in Rajasthan. And her duty was to see that the child marriages are stopped. And especially, there is a very auspicious month that is Akathej, they say. That's a month where these marriages are facilitated and they are held, especially child marriages. And let me tell you, in the northern states, it's rampant. In spite of these acts, it's very rampant today, even in some parts of Karnataka also, and sometimes in our own district, as I've seen as a child welfare committee chairperson. Now, going back to Rajasthan and to Babri Devi, she had stopped a child of two getting married during this period. She was successful too, and if she gets pay of rupees 200 per week. So you can imagine the meager, and she is an illiterate person. And then what happened was she stopped this marriage of a child aged 2 years, and the child belonged to an upper caste, whereas this Babri Devi belonged to a lower caste. You can say, call her a scheduled tribe or whatever it is. And therefore she stopped it. But nonetheless, the Gujars had the marriage function done in the night and they finished it off. But the revenge, the vindictiveness remained in them forever. So they ostracized this couple from the village and they went, asked them to stay far away. They did go. But there also the vengeance didn't stop. So what they did was the father of the child, that is one of the Gujars, along with four others, went into the field where this lady and her husband are working. They assaulted the husband in front of the wife with lethal weapons, and also when she came to rescue her husband, four of them fought by her. They pinned her down to the ground, and the father of the child and another man raped her. When she came home, they were, you can imagine her state, mental state, and that of the man. They were not given any treatments in the local hospitals or local clinics, so they had to travel 50 miles away to the capital of Rajasthan, that's Jaipur. When it reached, it was the 5 hours of evening, and what happened there was rather further traumatic for her to bear. There, when she went to the hospital to give a complaint to the police, they refused to take. Then she went and got herself to be checked in a hospital, government hospital. The doctors, they were no lady doctors. The mandates must be lady doctors to treat her. There were no lady doctors. The child doctor said, "Sorry, we can't touch you without the permission of the magistrate." When she went to the magistrate for permission, the magistrate said, "My work hours are over, and you come tomorrow." And so then, when she went, the next day, it was nearly 48 hours passed. And you know, in a case like this, the vigilance swab has to be taken within at the earliest, maybe 24 hours. And here 48 hours had lapsed. The case was becoming weak. And then she went to give a complaint. When she gave a complaint, ultimately it was registered. But when it was registered, what happened was, it was late night. And there also she got the same treatment from the police officers, women officers taunting her status, "You think you're Sati Savitri," etc., etc. And she was ostracized there. Then ultimately they took the complaint on record, the case was registered, and they said in the middle of the night, "You give us your clothing, we need to take it to the forensic science laboratory." Will she have a change? She said, she pleaded, "I will stay here overnight and I will do some arrangements for the clothes." But they said, "No, we want it just now." You can just imagine the humiliation a woman of that particular stature who has undergone a gang rape was going through all this while. And so then what happened was the police husband gave her his, what is that, blood-ridden dhoti to wear, and they gave her the langar for forensic examination, and they came home. The case went on. This was in the year 92. In the year 1997 or 95, the verdict came. The verdict came in favor favor of the accused. They said they all of higher caste, they're Brahmins, and so they will not rape. See, they are not capable of raping. They are very honored people in society, and they are of upper class. That is the reason the judiciary gave, with due respect to the judiciary. And they said she's of a lower caste, so she's susceptible to these acts. This was something, what to say, still an injury to the injury. And therefore, she did not stay put. She went to she gathered her sartans, she gathered the public opinion, she made efforts in spite of this. She said, I have nothing to lose, I have lost everything in life. She did. But she was determined to fight the abuse which was being done by the system, which was already done on her sexually and everything else. She said, I have nothing to lose. At the most, I may lose my life, but at least I will die a heroic death. And she did not feel frightened of the system. This is where I want to show you how that is why I am bringing this historical background to you. So she can do certain things. And the High Court also confirmed this acquittal. They said, yes, she is of questionable character, being a woman of a downtrodden community, because they tried to make money. She was getting hardly 200 rupees a month. But she didn't stay there. She went to the apex court in this country, that the Supreme Court, and said, my atmosphere at the workplace is not safe. And hence the Supreme Court came heavily on this particular thing. And it is the first time in the history, legal history, or in jurisprudence, what happened was they defined what is meant by uh, sexual harassment at workplace. The Supreme Court took certain NGOs to work on this and made them formulate guidelines, and that became this thing. And it took, let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, it took 50 years after independence for the first time what is sexual harassment at workplace came to be defined. You can imagine the amount of lethargy the polity has towards women. Now, after the guidelines were there by the Supreme Court, that is incorporated in the Act, which I will be giving you, I would not like to take your time on that. The guidelines were not followed properly, and when in the year little further after this guideline, and that is the time when Supreme Court judge, there was a 3-member judge bench there on deciding on this case. There was a lady judge called Sujata Manohar. She said these words, I'm ashamed to be called as a woman. I'm ashamed to be called as an Indian woman. Why? Not because of this, because it took 50 years for us to recognize what is this sexual harassment at workplace. And so this is the comment she did as the judge of an apex court. So you can imagine the, the empathy the judiciary has, the polity has, and the society has towards women at workplace. So this is how. Then after that, it didn't stop at that, and hardly anyone was following these guidelines because it did not have legal sanctity, because it did not have enforceability. It was just the guidelines given by the Supreme Court, and therefore what happened was everybody was not following that. So therefore, the Supreme Court gave a diktat to the government that they should formulate a law to this extent. And mind you, from 1997, the verdict came from the Supreme Court. Till 2013, there was no law which was enforced by the Parliament. It was only in the year 2013, just imagine, nearly 60 years from when the guidelines were given, then it was enforced as a law. It came to become an act. So here, in spite of we having Article 14, Article 15, no discrimination, Article 19, giving the woman the direct right to profess any profession she wants, Article 21 of the Constitution giving the right to life. We have the CEDAW, that is the International Covenants on Women. In spite of all this, we had failed miserably even to define what is meant by sexual harassment at workplace. And paradoxically, it was done after 16 years long wait. And that is why we always envisage that we need to have what we call as reservation for women, so that these enactments will pass through the parliament in a very faster pace, and therefore we will be benefiting by that. Of course, we must see a day where the parliament, at least 50% of the women are members in our parliament are women. Now, this act, sexual harassment at workplace, was enacted in the year 2013, 9th December. It received the assent of the president. Now, the act was to ensure that the women are protected against sexual harassment at all workplaces, be it public, be it in private sector, or organized sector, or non-organized sector. So that this will contribute to the realization of the right to gender, right to equality, right to life, right to liberty, and equality in working conditions everywhere for the women. So with that, it came, the right of equality also was brought in there. The sense of security of workplace will improve women's enterprises and participation in work, which will result in economic empowerment of women, and this in turn will be contributory to the inclusive growth in the economic field. So this was the basic motive or the period behind this act. One is to bring in, to curb this menace, to see what that menace meant, how will we curb them, how will we bring equality at the workplace for women, which the man has more safety than the women, and the last one is to see to the economic empowerment of women. Unless they are safe, how can we have improvement in, how will they go to work? How will they fend for themselves? How will they have a safe environment was the question. So these questions were very clearly answered in this act. So now we have got this act in the year 13. So now we will go step by step in knowing the definitions, so that you will know who has to go, where you have to go, what is sexual harassment. We always think it is just a rape, or you can say anything else like that, a bodily sexual harassment or whatever, physical sexual harassment. But that is not so in this act. There are many other this thing. Now, when now the person who can go, any person in relation to a workplace, any woman, I mean any woman in relation to a workplace of any age, whether employed or not, who alleges to have been subject to any act of sexual harassment by the respondent. Now, this woman under the act is termed, we have the nomenclature for different, now for rape, she's a victim, for accused, say this thing. So for the this lady, one who complains, we call her as an aggrieved person. So in relation to the dwelling place or a house, a woman of any age who is employed in a dwelling place or a house, this is coming under the unorganized sector. So here, both the organized sector as well as the unorganized sector have been included, so that when we are speaking about equality, the law is equal even to a person who is employed in the unorganized sector as well as the organized sector. We are governed by the same common law. Now, who is an employee? Now, you know who is a woman who can file a complaint. A person employed in the workplace on a regular basis. It may be a regular base, it may be a temporary base, it may be a daily wage, it may be directly through an agent or indirectly, it may be to the knowledge of the employer or it may not be to the knowledge of the employer. Sometimes it's a contract labor. So not working in voluntary basis also, let me tell you, it's just not the pay or the money which counts. You can't take it as a yardstick. So you have to, even a voluntary worker, whether in terms of employment of express or implied, including a co-worker or a contract worker, and even a probationary or apprentice or by any such name. So all these people can be termed as employees. Then who's an employer is the next question. In relation to the department, organization, undertaking, establishment, enterprise, institution, office, branch, or appropriate unit of the government or non-government, any branch. So it may be a private organization or a public organization. It may be a branch, it may be unit, it may be independent unit from the main this thing. So all these come under the connotation of employer. Then, then now the most important thing is sexual. What is meant by sexual harassment at workplace? Now it includes any one or more of the following unwelcome or whether directly or indirectly implied implications. First is physical contact and advances. It may be just a touch here to the private parts of the body or advances. Even he need not touch us. He can advance a demand or a request for sexual favors. Will you go and come and sleep with me? Or he may be making sexually colored remarks. Things, you look like this, you look like that, your this part is good, your that part is beautiful, or whatever it is. They are all colored remarks showing pornography. So even if you show pictures of obscene pictures, it is resulting in this thing. Any other unwelcome physical, verbal, or non-verbal conduct of sexual nature. When I was invited for this particular session, my Dr. Leela told me to give some examples to this particular effect. Let me tell you, you may be wondering that you don't have any cases like that because they're not reported, because they can't be reported under the law. So what happens is, to give you, I may be permitted because this what happened in your own college. Maybe I have been visiting your college too much, and they might have heard me. And this lady who is in a very responsible place in your, she was a faculty. I don't know whether she still exists as a faculty or not. But she came to me because she had heard me speak about this. And of course, not on this particular topic, but she did come to me when she was harassed on the social networking sites by another colleague of hers who was not in the institution but had some fiduciary relationship. And she came with all the courage to give a complaint. And we were successful. Of course, it was not this, but all that requires is courage. And unless and until we come out openly, now it is not, it just hear me and forget by this year, hear by that year and forget is not going to work. We have to use this in times of crisis when we are confronted with these kind of atrocities at our workplace. That is why this is very important for you to know about it. So this is how. Then many years ago, many years ago, this is from my own experience, I'm going to tell you. Many years ago, what happened was there was a society. Society means, these cooperative societies in a very remote village in Belkangi. Now, there was a man who was the society head. He was harassing this lady. She was separated from her husband. And she never did, did have two children and she was living separately from him. And she was working in the society and this man was trying to antagonize her in many ways, as I just told you. But she did not relent to him his sexual advances. And then what happened was she was victimized in many ways. She had a friend and she was pregnant. And she, because she did not she did not comply to his sexual advances and requests. He put her to a village which was still more interior, where there was only one bus service, and she had to walk about 3 kilometers to that another society to her workplace. And then again, somehow she tried to come back and come to back to the same society. And there also he put her into charge of some unwanted things. And ultimately, one fine day in the morning, in front of everybody, he pulled her out and he outraged her modesty. She went to the police. It was no use because power and politics and money plays a very dirty role in our day-to-day lives in getting justice. This is a fact. Let me tell you that, and it is sad, and especially for women who are downtrodden and who don't have education, and there's nobody to help them. She went from pillar to post in search of asking for justice. She went to the Cooperative Societies Act, she went here, she went to the highest officer in the district, but nonetheless she couldn't do anything about it. Ultimately, she wrote to the Women's Commission, and the Women's Commission said that there must be an inquiry on this and appoint a complaints committee. So the complaints committee was appointed, and since it was constituted by the Women's Commission, I was asked to be the chairperson for that committee because there was nobody in the institution to head that. And ultimately, after all the procedural aspects, we came to the conclusion that he was in the wrong. And he was awarded, we fined him 10,000 rupees, and we asked him to apologize. These are the things which are coming in, we can see them later. And so he went against the order to the High Court. High Court said, no, you need to be treated still worse. They have given you a very light punishment, so we need to put you into certain very humiliating position. So you are taken off work. So this happened in our village, in our own district, some years and years ago. So if you can see these things coming from small village, uneducated, and or very having very little support from the society, very little support from money-sided people or anything for that matter, and they stand up. And so we so-called educated, having all the facilities, all in the knowledge, we never come out in open because we are apprehensive about our image. We are apprehensive of losing our, social standing. We are apprehensive about losing our job naturally because it is a paying job. And what could be the future for us and the taboos which are correlated to these things. So we are shunning away from taking action against or taking shelter under these enactments. And there we have failed miserably, let me tell you that. It may be any act for that matter. This is exactly what happens in women's laws when we have them, especially in these things. I can imagine a woman with a little poverty, and even they say we have to adjust, madam, because I have to look after my sisters. I have to look, what is there if he touches me here and there, now and then? It doesn't matter because I will lose a job. My father is sick, he's in the hospital, and this and this, this and this. I can imagine them telling, but so-called educated and well-placed people and women cannot afford to say that. And that is where we are doing not only injustice to ourselves, but also to other sisters of ours. Now, you have heard who is complaint or the aggrieved person. You have also seen who can complain, who is the employer, who is the employee. Now we go into the complaints committee, where to complain. So we have the Act mandates that every organization should have a complaints committee. Now the complaints committee, what is the constitution? The presiding officer shall be a woman employed at a senior workplace level and one amongst the employee. So the person must be appointed by the management first, and she must be a senior woman in the employee hierarchy. And she must have some bit of integrity also. She can't be partial or she can't be this thing. So, no less than two members from the employees preferably committed to the cause of women and have experience in social work and legal knowledge. So, at least two women who have a little bit of taint of social work, little bit of knowledge of law must be made as what is that? Members from your own organization. There are people, we have, many of you all know so much of things by, you all had so many legal education programs. We have Zubeda, and we have so many others. They have been holding that for you all the time. Then one of the members from among the non-governmental organization or association committed to the cause of women or a person familiar with the issues relating to sexual harassment. So the another member should be a lady who is well versed in from a non NGO, or she must be well versed with these kinds of cases. So she has to be a member, provided half of the total number of people, that will be 9 people in the committee, half of them must be women. So one is the person who will decide as the chairperson, and two from the institution, one from this thing, all that. The presiding officer of the internal committee shall hold the office for not exceeding 3 years. So every 3 years there will be a change. The members appointed amongst the non-government, they should be paid by whom? Your organization. So they are coming from faraway places, so they must be reimbursed whatever the cost of this. That's very technical, not you. So the complaint of sexual harassment. So how are you now? You know the constitution of the complaints committee, internal complaints committee. Now, how are you going to go about with this particular thing? How are you putting law into motion? Now, you're an agreed person. You have been harassed either in all the ways or some of the ways I just said what is meant by sexual harassment. Now, you have to make, the agreed person has to make a complaint in writing of sexual harassment at workplace to the internal committee if, or to the local committee, and it must be within 3 months from the date she has encountered this. Not whenever we want or whenever you want, like that. No. Because it must have sanctity. It must have, what to say, it must be correct. Now, if I have an injury, I will come to the hospital at once. I will not come after it has healed after 3 months. Similarly, when a person has aggrieved, the best way to prove your case is to go immediately. So here, in spite of that, there will be some shortcomings, there will be some apprehensions, the person has to get over it, and therefore the law has given a long rope to go. So 3 months, within 3 months, she has to report it to the internal committee in writing. Now, it cannot be made in writing. Sometimes what happens is we cannot make it in writing, and therefore what happens is we have to the person can go to the committee and verbally, sometimes they are illiterate, they don't know the procedural aspects, so she can make a request to the committee and they shall render assistance to her. So they will ask somebody to give her assistance to put it in writing. So the assistance also must be given to her so that she will not be this thing. Provided the internal committee may be, so they suppose I want some time, extension of time, because I could not report on time. Maybe mentally I was harassed and mentally I was not in a position even to come and attend my workplace. So if they can use their discretion and give more time for filing of the complaint. So you can see how facilitating the act is towards women to come in and complain. They give them 3 months time, they give them assistance. If they cannot put it in writing, then they give them this, they give them that. So that every person is unable to make a complaint on account of physical or mental cruelty or death or otherwise, her legal as such and other persons may be prescribed to make a complaint under the section. Sometimes they may commit suicide. Sometimes they may die. But it should not go unredressed. So even a person who has undergone and has encountered this thing has, even if she's dead, the legal heirs also can go and give a complaint to the committee. So it doesn't stop at that, because the person is no more. So whatever she has undergone, now a person because of this harassment has committed suicide. Their legal heirs can go and pursue the matter. So there's no bar. Just because she's dead, she's mentally ill because of that, and all these things. The internal committee, before initiating an inquiry under Section 13, and the request for the aggrieved person to take steps to settle the matter. So there is a provision for reconciliation also, or conciliation. Just like we have mediation now in the courts. Similarly, under the committee also, sometimes what happens is because of certain stress or certain misunderstandings, the complaints are given. Let me tell you that. It's not always clear. Now we have the Dowry Harassment Act. Now the Supreme Court has come heavily on that because there are so many false complaints. So that mustn't happen. So to see this balancing checks are there. There is a stage for reconciliation, so that you are, if he apologizes, the respondent apologizes to the victim, the agreed person, she or he can compromise the matter and end it at that particular point of time, then dragging it and making it an issue. So um, there is a provision for under Section 11 of the Act for reconciliation or conciliation, so that they will settle the matter between themselves. So, as the case may be, they shall provide the settlement recorded under subsection to the aggrieved person and the respondent. So, whatever the settlement is, the copies of the settlement must be given to both the persons, because tomorrow that will again be an aggravating fact. So, therefore, the whatever the settlement reached at, she cannot misuse again and come again and say, "Oh, he did this to me," and then settlement has been ensured. So the settlement arrived under Section 11(1). No further inquiry shall be conducted. So once a reconciliation has this thing and the settlement is arrived, maybe he has paid her, but if paying is not underhand, or it has to be recorded. So it's not a bribe. It's not something you are giving this thing. So it must be recorded, so that everything is done in a transparent manner. Now you have filed the complaint, there is a stage for conciliation. Then how will the inquiry ensue? How will the inquiry go? Subject to the provisions of the Act 10, the internal committee shall, case where the respondent is an employee, proceed to make an inquiry into the complaint in accordance with the provisions of the service rules applicable to the respondent. So the inquiry will be on the basis of the service rules, and under which the respondent is covered. So how do you make an inquiry under the service rules? You have different service rules. The private sector has certain service rules, the public sector has certain service rules. So based on that manner, or prescribed as the, for a domestic worker, the local committee, now there are, for you all institutions and recognized, for the local people, now you may ask me, there is a worker, a coolie worker, she's harassed, there's a laborer who's harassed, there's a day coolie who's harassed. How will you do? So we have something as known as local committees, which is headed by the DC of district. So we can go and complain there and register it, and they have to forward this complaint to the police within a period of 7 days. Even in your apart from the service rules, and even the local committees under Section 509 of IPC. What does 509 of IPC says? It says any word or gesture, act intended to insult the modesty of the woman. Now we may pass colored remarks, we may show pornography, that will be a gesture or an act intended to insult the modesty of the woman. Section 509. And this bears a punishment of 1 year and a fine, or both. and it is triable by a magistrate. So the complaint will be lodged first. At first, this thing will be there. And for the purpose of making an inquiry under section 1 of the internal committee or the local committee, they have the powers just like a under civil procedure code. Now, civil procedure code, you can summon or enforce the attendance of that person or any person to be examined on oath. So the committee has it's a very powerful committee having civil procedure rights, just like in a civil court. How the court can summon a witness, summon anybody for that matter. Similarly, the inquiry committee, the complaints committee can do this, requiring the recovery and production of documents. If there are documents to be needed, it can summon those documents. Suppose I want certain documents to be called. I have been, I have been taking treatment because of this harassment in a hospital. I want those documents to be summoned. I can make it, if I'm an agreed person, I can make an application to the committee. And so the committee can summon those documents and any other matter which may be prescribed. The inquiry under section 1 shall be completed within a period of 90 days. So the whole procedure has to be completed within 90 days. So this is what the law says. So this is the pattern of inquiry. So the committee has been given civil jurisdiction powers to summon witnesses, to summon documents, to summon and give evidence. During the pendency of the inquiry, written requests made by the aggrieved person, now to the she can make now even during the inquiry, see how she is protected. She can ask for a transfer. Now I have filed a case. Now most of the time, what happens under the criminal jurisprudence is that we are apprehensive because it's a criminal proceeding, and there may be something which is a retaliation from the opposite side. So we are afraid. Even to give a police complaint. ನಾನು police complaint ಕೊಡ್ತೇನೆ ಆದ್ರೆ ಅವನು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು ನನಗೆ ಅಂತ there is one kind of apprehension from the other side. So to overcome this, she can request the committee to transfer her temporarily at least till the period of inquiry to another place. Grant leave to the agreed person for a month period of 3 months, because 90 days is the period of inquiry, and therefore she can ask for it. And this leave is a paid leave. Let me tell you that it's not leave without any pay. It should be a paid leave. Grant such other relief to the agreed person, whatever she prescribed, and this is in addition to what she is already entitled under the service rules. Let me tell you that this is in addition to what is already inquired under the service rules. Now, there is also a provision not only for this thing. There will be provisions for determining the compensation. Now, she will get compensation also. Now, there may be many punishment. There may be demotion. There may be dismissal. There may be apology. Whatever is there in your service rules will be applying to this also. Apart from that, there is also compensation. They have the prerogative. The committee has the prerogative of awarding compensation to the agreed person. It may be on different bases: mental trauma, pain, suffering, and emotional distress caused to the agreed person. For these also, she can claim compensation. The loss of career opportunity due to the incident of sexual harassment. Now she has definitely she can't face the society, and she has left the job, and because of that her career opportunity is gone. Next employer also may not be in a very good position to treat her well. Oh, she has given a complaint there, so I don't want her here. So she has to run from pillar to post. This is one more thing which is hampering in our legal process. This is how society looks at us, as though we are the persons who have done the wrong. And this is the common thing which has to change, and this change has to come from each one of us. It's not, and even if we are at the helm as a lady, I may misunderstand her, and I may this thing. So the loss of career opportunity will be there. So that also has to be compensated by the this thing. So then we have medical expenses incurred by the victim for physical and psychiatric treatment. Sometimes we all have in hospital, but people from outside, people from unorganized sector, they have to pay through the nose. And you know what are the medical charges these days, and especially after COVID, and how houses are ruined. And so they have to be compensated for the loss of income also and financial status. And all this depends upon the financial status and income. All this compensation will be based on the financial status and the income of the respondent. So, how much is he earning? The feasibility of such payment is lump sum or installments. That is okay. So, it can be given in lump sum. Sometimes the feasibility is very, sometimes the compensation amount can be very big. It deserves to be. And now the inquiry is over, the punishment is there as per your service rules. We cannot define it here. They have put it to your this thing, court to play it as you want, according to your service rules. But still, they have made some additions and see. Now, suppose the man is aggrieved by this order, where will he go? Or even if the suppose the complaint is thrown to the winds and then educate on that properly, the woman also has a right to go. Where she will go. As per the service rules, where do they go? They have to go there. In case that is not working, they can go and approach in a writ petition and see that this thing is done. So all this comprises of the act for the sexual harassment at workplace. So this is legally what sexual harassment of workplace means. So, but we see very few cases being reported because of these mental blocks, because of this stigma attached, because of losing a job, because of so many other financial factors, economic factors, or familial factors. Even my husband shouldn't know what has happened in the workplace to me, or my in-laws will be knowing this. So we are being apprehensive in reporting these crimes. So it's high time we raise to these issues. And one of the most important ingredient of passing this law is to see that it is propagated and it is properly, what to say, uh, given and brought to the notice of all the employees in an institution, so that they have even recommended that they should uh, put all these points which must be publicly displayed on the walls when you enter the institution, that you have complaints committee, and if you have harassment like this, it may be in a kind master relationship, it may be patient-doctor relationship, whatever it is, there will be an harassment. So under these circumstances, you can complain to the complaints committee and see that the redressal comes through. So this is a very beautiful enactment, and it is very short and sweet, but and it is having a time frame too, so that it will not be lengthy and take years together to be adjudicated, so that the justice is done fast, because justice delayed is justice denied, you know that. And our legal system is such that we go for years together on a case, and at the time everybody forgets everything and the issue dilates. So under these circumstances, this is the best thing which is there for a woman at workplace. So, if you have any questions, this is exactly what the act means. I've given you a historical background. I've given you a step-by-step the rules. The steps to be followed in filing the complaint. What are the remedies available to you, and how we can go about. So, for local things, for people who are unorganized sector, we have the government agency, means the government has local committees. We can approach them. There are farm workers, there are coolie workers, there are what is that? Construction workers. All this can be approached before the thing. So when you have workforce more than 9 in an organization, these committees are mandatorily necessary in there. So if you have any, and you have any questions to ask, you can ask. Definitely. Hope I am clear about this.
Thank you, madam, for disseminating expertise information on women's safety at workplace. Your judicious presentation enlightened all of us on the topic. Thank you. If any query participants, you can ask, it will be clarified. Participants, if any query you can ask, it will be clarified.
Either yes.
There are no questions in the chat box and even YouTube link, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the wonderful session. By this, we wind up with the session. Thank you, participants, and thank you all. Thank you, ma'am. Stay safe. Take care.